All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about the Microsoft 365 apps that you maybe or probably didn't know about. And this is something that we wanted to address because, quite frankly, within the world of Microsoft, they are constantly coming up with new tools, new applications, new ways of using, older tools or existing tools. And so as I mentioned, we've got the chat and the Q&A going. So please feel free to put anything that you have in there, and I'll do my best to answer those questions as we go. Now, when we were putting this together, we really looked at it and we said, boy, there's so many applications available in Office 365. What are the ones that would probably be, most relevant, easiest to access and most valuable for our clients? So you can see the agenda here. We'll start off showing you where to find these applications, and then we'll just do a quick touch on the three that we wanted to highlight, which are Microsoft Forms, Microsoft Planner, and Microsoft Bookings. These are apps that we use within our operations, pretty much every day. And if you're not familiar with them, they could be handy for you as well. So the reason we focused on these three is that they're included in most of the Office 365 subscriptions, and they're really handy, and they fill some gaps that a lot of businesses have. So Microsoft Forms is essentially a tool for creating surveys, for collecting information. You can use the information for things like registrations. Quite frankly, we have a Microsoft form that we use for our staff whenever they are, driving a company vehicle. They can put, their start and their end location. They can, if they're refueling, they can track how much fuel they've put in. And they also can request service and maintenance on vehicles, and we get notifications from it. So you've probably all used something like SurveyMonkey in the past. Microsoft Forms is essentially their answer to that kind of function. So I'm just going to pop over. I've got another window open here. I've already opened a bunch of the tabs, so that hopefully we can navigate fairly easily. So the first things, so Patricia's asking, is Microsoft Forms like Google Forms? Yes, very similar. And yes, the information that goes into a Microsoft form can be used a number of different ways. So I'll show you a couple of them here. So the first thing is, if you want to find these apps, you're going to log into login.microsoftonline.com. You'll go through your login procedure. I decided to do that before we started so that we didn't have to bore you with that. Up in the top left, we've got the little waffle selector here. And when we expand that, it will show us the most commonly used applications. And of course, we can see here that Microsoft Forms isn't listed. Bookings is. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So we would want to click on all apps, and then you can see, you scroll down through the list, all of the different applications that Microsoft has included in this particular user's license. And here we've got Microsoft Forms. So it's real simple. We just click on Forms right there, and it's going to bring us in. And this particular account that I'm using is our demo account, so that we don't have to see all of our content that's in there. Obviously, it's pretty straightforward. There's the button here. We can create a new form. We can just click on that and it'll get us started. Can it be customized with branding, themes, and logos, and how easy is it to do so? So we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into it. So when you first launch a new form, we have the option here to name it. So we'll call it, February 7th, 2023 webinar. We then have the option of putting in a description, and we can just jump in, and we see here it has a couple of different types of options of what we can place next. So a choice is going to be like radio buttons. So we can start off, we just click on choice, and it gives us a prompt for the question. So, we could ask anything. Did you have a good lunch? And based on what we typed, it's going to predictively suggest the responses that people may want to have. And so it has a button here that we could click add all. And we'll see when we click on that, it now has 3 responses that are available. Yes, no, and maybe. If we had another option that we wanted to put, we can click add option and it'll put it there. We also, when we're on this one here, we can see it adds the ability, the little waffle selector here, that we can take and we can drag them and reorder them if we want to. Okay. Oh, I hadn't seen this. This is actually a new one for me. So you have the option that this little chat bubble here, if you select that, when somebody fills out your survey and chooses this, you can have a separate message show up. So if they said no, let's say we were a restaurant, we asked someone, did you have a good lunch? If they selected no, we could put a message here that says, talk to your server immediately about this, and give them some additional prompting. Or we could put a link, check out this article to learn more about it. If we just click outside of that grayed out box, you'll see, it essentially kind of formalizes those questions. And then we go and we create another one, and it can be a rating. We can ask, how was the service today? And we can choose whether we want, 2, 3, 5, 6 stars. It could be numbers, hearts, ribbons, thumbs, all kinds of different things. So as you're going through, obviously the important thing is you want to ask, good, relevant questions. You want to make them clear and concise, and obviously go through and build those out, for whatever particular need that you have. There's a couple of things within forms that are a little bit more, advanced. One thing is what they call branching. So think of it like when somebody walks into a hallway, right? When you're in a hallway, there's only one way that you can go. You have to go all the way down to the other end of the hall. And so if you just build out your questions, they have to go through all of them in order. There's also this option down here when you're editing a question that you can select this little radial, and there's this option to add branching. Now, that's kind of like putting a fork in the road, where you could say anybody who answered yes, and actually maybe we'll do that real quick. I'm just going to add a third question. It'll just be the date. What is today's date? Please input date. Okay. So I could go back to this very first question. I can add branching, and I would say, if somebody selects yes, I want their next question to go, what is today's date? If they said no, I want them to go to, how was the service today? And so by using branching, I can build out my my questions, my surveys in a way that guides people, kind of through a series of questions that seem a little bit more maybe intelligent than just having them follow through one at a time after another. The other thing I wanted to touch on here is we've got options in the little radial selector to shuffle. So, I mean, that's real simple. If I click that, now there's a check mark beside it. Every time somebody goes into this survey, it's not going to be yes, no, maybe option 4. It'll shuffle those around, right? And of course, the purpose of that is so that people don't just get in the habit of always clicking yes, 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 yes as the first option. You can change it from being a radial selectors into a drop down instead. So when I select a drop down, you can see it switched it. It doesn't show the 4 choices. There's options where you can, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure what the math option is. That didn't show up earlier when I was prepping for this. Subtitle would just be the option to, did you have a good lunch? I hope, please let us know what your thoughts were, kind of a follow-up, but that's not actually part of the question. And then there's options where you can make a question required, meaning they have to answer it. And, if you're going to give people the option to select more than one choice, then you could put multiple answers. As an example, if you were going to use this to organize a staff event and you wanted to give them more than one choice of options, what are your top 2 choices for staff activities on that day? All right, so the one question there was, can it be customized? So over in the top right here, you can click on theme, and they have a bunch of pre-done themes. So you can just simply click and it will change your backgrounds. If you wanted to put your own customized theme, you would click on the plus down at the bottom. Now, I have to admit, I haven't personally gone through this, but I would imagine I could take and upload, a photo of my, logo or, something along those lines in there. So once we have our survey prepared, then of course we need to share this with people. So we would come to collect responses, and we see that there are 3 options. Anyone can respond. So if I were to select this, obviously I could take and send this out to anybody by email, and they would be able to see and fill in the form. They wouldn't be able to see the results, the responses, but they'd be able to respond. Only people in my organization, should be quite clear. Obviously, anybody who has a at Tier 3 IT email address would be able to respond, or specific people within my organization. So if I wanted to, specify that I'm only going to have a certain department, or, the team leads, or however you wanted to define that, you can do that. So for our purposes right now, I'm going to choose anyone can respond. I would come here, there's a link, and I have the option of getting a shortened URL or not. So I'll keep the shortened one. I'll copy this, and I will drop this into our chat. Just close that. So if you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead, click on that link, and hopefully I haven't messed up the form too much. You should be able to go ahead and just fill that in really quick. All right. So we can see people are starting to fill them in. So right within, where I created the form, I can click on responses, and you can see it's even updating it live as people are filling them in. It will give us a little bit of information at a glance, of what the responses are looking like on each of the individual questions. And, because of the types of responses that we selected, it's choosing to show us, that information in a different way. We can also click on more details, and we'll notice here, it's showing us that everyone is anonymous. And that's because because I've sent it outside of our organization, it doesn't necessarily log who you are. Typically, when it's inside, so if I was sending it to my staff, it would log their name. And so you just want to be a little bit cognizant of, do you need to know who the responders are? If so, then you probably want to add a question at the beginning that says, what is your name? Or run a little test. Again, if you're doing it internally with your staff, my experience is that it typically automatically captures their name because they're doing it through their Office 365 account. The other thing, and this was one of the questions earlier, so you can also click open in Excel. And then, so of course, it gives us the responses all in an Excel format. So it does sort them, shows us the date that it started and completed. Like we said, if it was authenticated, it would have captured that. And then, the responses that they put in, all of that. Now, if you want to get really into, some of the ways that you can use this information, it's not on one of our apps that we're going to talk about today, but there is an app in here called, they always change the name. They used to call it Flow. Now they call it Power Automate. And so Power Automate is kind of like this tool within Office 365 where you can set up lots of rules. So I'll give you an example. I mentioned earlier, we have a form that our staff use for requesting maintenance on a vehicle. So if they use the form and all they do is say, hey, I filled up a vehicle today, I put X number of liters in, and this is what the odometer is, that's fine. It just logs it in the Excel file because it's just information. If, however, they say this vehicle needs maintenance, we've used Power Automate so that anytime they check that box yes, it automatically forwards that email over to the management team so that somebody is aware that they've requested that maintenance. So you can use this tool just very simply like this, or you can kind of integrate it into some of your other workflows. All right. If you have any questions about forms that we didn't cover, please feel free to post them. But we talked about the analytics. We'll just move on to Microsoft Planner. So Microsoft Planner is a really handy tool to help organize, collaborate, visualize, kind of the tasks that you're working on as a team. Now, we use Planner, quite extensively, and you'll see it basically allows you to create these different, tiles, and it'll make a lot more sense when we get into it. But you can create these things that they call buckets. Within the buckets, you can create tasks, and then you can add a lot of detail into those tasks so that people on your team are able to very quickly and easily see what are the different priorities that we're working on, who's responsible for them, what's the state of kind of affairs. And then similar to what we saw in forms, they're working on building in visualizations and analytics around that data. So we'll pop back over into our Office 365. And I've already selected the little selector there, and we're doing planner, right? So when you log in and you try to do this the first time, what you'll see is it'll come up with a little demo, and it'll show you a couple different places that you need to look at on the screen. This is telling me, hey, I can get the app on my phone and carry this around with me. So I already created one plan here, but I'm actually just going to, we'll just remove it and we'll start a new one. So I'm going to start a new plan. Again, I'll just call it webinar February 2023. Immediately, it allows me to choose my privacy settings. So if I want everyone in the organization to see it, make it public. If it's only for a certain team or group, then obviously I want it to be private. In this case, I'll select public, and the only option down here is a group description. It does have the option here to add to an existing 365 group, which we don't have any in this demo tenant, so I'm not even bothered with that. But if you had groups set up, you could do that. So the plan, how you organize your tasks, you're going to want to maybe think about that a little bit. So as an example, we have organized our planners by department. So we would have a planner for marketing. We would have one for support, for projects, for management. And so that would be what we would call webinar. Instead of webinar, we would call that marketing. Now in here, we see it says to do, and then over here it says add new bucket. Now, to do doesn't have to be, called to do. It could be, anything. So we could call it research required. We could create a bucket called approvals required. Kind of whatever, however you think about grouping, work or tasks or information. The tasks, so those are called buckets. The tasks are the things that we're going to do within that. Another example I'll give as a bucket. So when we think about our planner that we use for marketing, it's February. So right now we're working on our plans for March 2023. So that's how we're going to group the information. We can then go and click on the add task. And it's going to ask us, to enter a task name. So I'm going to say plan webinars. I can set a due date. I want to have our March webinars planned before the end of February. And in this organization, I only have one person. So that's the only one that shows up. But I could take and I could assign this to, other people that are in that organization. Okay, so then I click on add the task. So you saw that the initial setup of the task was super basic. It just says plan webinars, and we know that it's assigned to Charles. If I come and I click on this tile now, it actually gives us a lot more information that we can put. So labels are they're ways of color coding. You can change, the names of the label. So just because this one, the color is pink, you could change it and say, well, I don't want this to be pink. I want this to be, in planning. And now we see it says in planning instead of pink. So one way to help visualize is, in colors. We know what bucket it's in, the progress, not started, in progress, completed. We can assign a priority, start date, due date. Oh, and interesting. So we could have we could repeat on this. This is actually one I personally haven't used, but if we wanted to repeat this monthly, we could add that there. If we needed to add any notes, we would type them here. This is how we plan our content. And then the thing that I particularly like about Planner is plan webinars. That's the overarching thing that we want to get done. But there's going to be multiple tasks within that. And that's where this checklist comes in. So we can add task 1, task 2, right? Multiple tasks, and obviously, there's a lot of space on here for descriptions. Always love typing live for people. And there's an option here to show it on the card or not. So the card is what they call, kind of that main view. One thing to note is that anything that you put on this checklist, it is going to be tied to the primary assignee, to Charles. That doesn't mean that you couldn't say, okay, task 1 is going to be Jesse will do. Just, I can't take and specify, okay, only task 1 will show up for Jesse. I can assign the overall plan or to multiple people, but yeah, it might be getting a little bit confusing going through all that. If there were attachments, we could put that there, and then of course comments. So when I've done that, when I close, now I can look and I can see very quickly where are we at on our planning our webinars task. So if I had completed task number 1, I just went and I checked the selector on the main card, and we can see that it went away. If I come and click on it, it will have it struck through, and it'll show me I've completed a third of the tasks. I'm going to go in. I'm just going to and create a second one. Now, the other thing also with Planner is that you can create tasks without a lot of the details. So you'll notice this one, I didn't put an assignee. I also didn't put a due date. It just added the task called second one. And the reason I wanted to do that was I wanted to just show how it works as far as moving these around. So I might come in here and I'd say, hey, we started on this second thing. We thought we were ready to approve it, but you know what? We actually need to be doing a little bit more research. So I could take and I can drag these between buckets just to help visualize, what we're working on. Again, when we go and talk about it as part of our, marketing plan, we might plan on doing something in March, but maybe we don't get it done. So then we would take and we would drag that into April instead. The other thing that I wanted to just show you real quick, and this wasn't on our agenda for today, but one of the, more beneficial, features that Microsoft is adding is they're trying to take all of the information from these different apps and consolidating it into the places where we work on a regular basis. So I've actually got Outlook for this user open here. And I'm not sure if you've spent any time looking at it, but there's this little blue check mark. And if you hover over it, it says to do. Now, when I click on to do, Microsoft To Do is technically a complete other app that they have created. But when I come in here, if I click on assigned to me, it will show me those tasks that have been outright assigned to me. And the reason I'm showing you this, and the reason I think that this is fairly beneficial, is we can have multiple plans. And actually, in this case, I had one that I started as the test. So I created a bucket called, or a task called review apps and test, assigned it to that person. And then I have this other planner that we all just created while we were on this today. And I have tasks in each of those planners. Well, if I have to go into every single one of the planners to find the information that I'm, or the tasks that I'm responsible for, there's a lower likelihood I'll get it all done. But if I can go into Microsoft To Do, click on Assign to Me, and go, oh, okay, I need to complete these tasks. Again, it's, kind of like a pared down version of Planner where I can see what I'm working on. Well, give me a nice little sound saying that I completed that. And it may take a moment for it to sync over, but it will sync back. There we go. And now we can see task 1 and task 2 are completed. So they're really working on tying these all together. Okay. So Michelle asked, how easy is it to assign a task to someone that isn't a part of the organization? Well, that's an interesting question. I don't actually know that you can. I believe it is only available for people within, Planner's going to only allow you to assign it because they'd have to have the appropriate licensing and permissions to be able to get in and see it. And then the other question was, what licensing allows access to these apps? Sorry if I'm not super prepared for that one, but these apps, most of them are included in, I'm pretty sure, the Business Basic, and then they're pretty much all going to be in Business Premium and Microsoft E3. Char's asking, do they get an email notifying them when a task has been assigned to them? I'm pretty sure they do. And the only reason I'm I'm pretty sure that they do, Char. It would be worth just testing and confirming on your, like on One For You. I can't do it on this one because it's a separate test account. All right. There's a couple different views. The grid, the board, charts. This is a little bit about the kind of the analytics component that they're building into a lot of these apps. So if you had a lot of things in Planner and you wanted to kind of get an idea, how many things are not started, status, I personally don't find it super handy, but maybe you'll see a use for it. And then if you've done a really good job of putting due dates on everything, then it will also go into a calendar view. However, these items are not going to show up on your personal calendar. So if we went back to his Outlook. Just confirming. Yeah, it doesn't add it to the calendar because it's not technically an appointment, it's a due date. All right, where am I here? Planner, there we go. Options here. Obviously you can look and you can see let's just load that. So that's interesting. I've never actually seen this. So it looks like it adds it as a group, and there's actually, it has its own inbox. So not sure what you'd want to use that for. You can obviously see who is in this one. any files that have been attached. Again, Notebook, I personally haven't used in Planner. Stephen was asking, does it create a Gantt chart? And I mean, Stephen's coming from very much a construction management and project planning kind of background. I don't think that it would give you anything that would be on par with what you would be used to, Stephen. That you'd probably need to use something more like Microsoft Project or Visio or something like that. So this was actually one that I personally hadn't used in the past, but you've got the option here in the drop-down to go to Notebook, and it has created a OneNote document for that particular webinar. So if you wanted to create a section about notes, you could do that. And again, just an example how Microsoft is tying all of this together. And then Sites is going to be how it ties into SharePoint. So there's a lot of stuff in here. Stephen, the export plan to Excel maybe would give closer to a Gantt chart style. But yeah, I'm not going to go through all those because they're getting into a little bit more of the weeds on it there. All right, any other questions about Planner? Again, super handy. It did mention, of course, that you can access it on your phone. We've incorporated Planner into our Microsoft Team segments. So, all right, Microsoft Booking. We've all played the game where we're trading emails back and forth saying, oh, are you available on Tuesday at 2 p.m.? And they come back and say, no, I'm available Tuesday at 10 a.m. and Wednesday at 3 p.m. And you go back and say, oh, I'm not available either of those. So Microsoft Booking is just a way to give people the opportunity to book directly onto your calendar. So just like the other ones, when we click on our little waffle selector, except that on this one, we see bookings is here already. Now, I just wanted to point out as well, it doesn't allow. Oh, I thought it would. It used to allow me to pin them here, but it's not. So bookings. Couple of things with bookings. First of all, this product has undergone significant change in the last year. It used to be that in order for you as an individual to have a bookings page, you actually had to set it up as a company page and then link it to yourself. They have now changed it so that we all have the option of having our personal booking page. And then just to keep everything, really fun, they're actually rolling out this thing called virtual appointments. And actually, look at this. We can see this article came out February 7th, 2023. So that's some hot news for you. It's coming soon. And you're likely going to see more of these types of kind of new applications because they are in the process, or they have just recently come up with this idea of Teams Premium. And so Microsoft has found a new way to charge to get access to some of those features. So anyways, a bookings page. If you want people to be able to quickly and easily book appointments with you, you would want to use bookings. And so we can come in here. Obviously, we can see a little bit about him. But if we go to the booking page, this is where we're going to have the option to edit and preview. Okay, so here we can edit our banner image, right? So take that. And I have the options here of creating public and private bookings options. So obviously public is going to be for everyone to see, private only people with the link. Now, when it says only those with the link can view, keep in mind, like if you were going to take and put that in your email, even if they're not a part of your organization, they'll be able to see those. So we can take and add, and it's asking us to define a meeting type. And so we could call this a coffee chat. Like everything, it gives us the option to categorize it. So we say that's blue. Let's have a coffee. Now, location, it's got a slider here for a Teams meeting, right? Or if we leave that blank, then they'll be able to enter their location. We can choose how long it's going to be. And for availability, we've got meeting hours and availability hours and advanced options. So let's take a look at our meeting hours here. And we can see it opened us into Outlook, because Outlook is where, as workers, we would typically define our work week. So in here, it shows our meeting hours are set from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you could take and say, oh, I only take meetings from 8 till 2:30. So you got your afternoons, or whatever the case may be. Time zones. Okay, well, that's good. So we'll just save that and pop back over here. Now, custom availability hours. So when I selected that, you'll notice it immediately gave us, options here. So maybe we're going to, set up a certain kind of campaign where we say, okay, we want to meet with everybody, within, the next 3 weeks. So I could come into availability and say, okay, if you want to book an appointment with me, it has to be between February 20th and March the 6th. I'm available, 8 a.m. till, whatever the time is, each of those days. And you could also set up multiple time slots. So maybe you want to have a morning availability from, 8 till 10. And then you also want to be available in the afternoon from, 12:45 till whatever, 2:15. So when they get this booking link, it would only show availability within those times. Now, advanced options, this is something that I think is really important. Just think about, like, if you're going to allow people to book directly onto your calendar, what kind of buffer do you need? Because when the person receives the link to book with you, it's not going to show them what's on your calendar, meaning who you're meeting with and the details, but it will show them time slots that are available. So you might say, buffer time before a meeting starts. So I don't want to have somebody, book onto my calendar at a time immediately after, let's say, my support team meeting, because that always goes, right up to the hour, maybe even a little bit over. So I'm going to say I need a 15-minute buffer before and a 5-minute buffer after, because I know that, if it runs a little bit long, then I can stick around, I can finish off that chat. Limit start time. So do you want it to start, at which intervals? So the shorter the interval, the more time availabilities it will show them. And then your minimum lead time. So if somebody had a link to book an appointment on your calendar, how much time in advance do you want or need to accommodate that? So again, if you were going to be creating a booking page for people within your company, maybe you give them an hour. For some reason, you have the choice of only 1 hour or 8 hours. You don't have the option of 4 hours or something like that. But if you wanted to say, I need at least 1 day, then they wouldn't be able to book until basically 3 p.m. on Wednesday. And then how far in advance do you want to allow people to be able to book on your calendar? So does it really make sense for people to be booking 60 and 90 days out? So let's go back here. All right. So once I've created that, if I click on the little radio and click copy link, and I'll just open an incognito browser here. So this is what, if I was to email this link out to someone, this is what they would see. They'd come to my page. Obviously, they see my header. And if I wanted to spend more time customizing that, I could. I could have created multiple meeting types. So I might have a 15-minute, a 30-minute, a 4-hour option. And then based on the criteria that we set, remember we said, hey, we're only going to allow them to book between February 20th and March 6th. They can go and select a time and book it now. Oh, okay. Oh, it's already picked up that it's pulling my information from my session. So it should have allowed me to enter that, but it's not because it's already logged in as that user. So when we click, we book it. And when we pop over to our Outlook calendar, on February 20th at 8:25, this meeting was scheduled from the booking page.